Good afternoon and welcome to the basics of flight plan filing. My name is Rob MacLeod. I'm an FAA aircraft dispatcher, commercial pilot, AGI. I have the pleasure and privilege of flying the Phenom and Citation 560 aircraft, and I'm also the customer success manager. I'm joined today with my good friend Tim Stahl, and I'll let Tim Stahl say hello.
Hello, Tim Stahl. Howdy, I'm an aircraft dispatcher, commercial pilot, and the flight operations team leader.
All right, now that we have those introductions out of the way, one thing you'll notice in our little resumes here is that neither of us are media experts or anything like that. This is something we do on the side here at ForeFlight. We think it's useful for our new users. So if we run into any hiccups, we're going to try to fix it on site as fast as possible because we are broadcasting live here from Houston. So, but we do have a dedicated and talented team of people working behind the scenes to help us out on this today. So we thank them in advance for that. So let's just talk a little bit about what we will cover today. We're going to talk about helpful tricks to make ForeFlight easier to use, things that we wish every user knew before flying or filing with ForeFlight, things like setup, flight plan filing, and flight planning. We want this to be kind of an interactive webinar here. So just assume that you ran into Tim and I at the FBO. You bought Tim his bottomless cup of coffee, and you said, "Hey, I just got this ForeFlight on my iPad. What do you think I should be doing with this?" And we'd sit you down and talk your ear off for a little short of an hour, giving you what we understand about ForeFlight, having used it not only as pilots, but also as folks behind the scenes, primarily involved in the flight operations side here at ForeFlight. So we hope that you find the time you spend with us here today, first of all, informative, that you come away with a better understanding of how to use this product, but we also want you to enjoy it a bit because, look, if you're a pilot, you've sat through a lot of really boring stuff with really boring presenters. We're going to try to make it a little bit fun, tell some really bad jokes, hopefully to keep you engaged. But ultimately, we want you to come away more informed than you did when you logged in here. Okay, what things that we're not going to cover? We're not going to cover the dispatch product that we have. We're not going to cover logbook. We're not going to cover weight and balance or subscriptions. We're going to stick mostly to getting the airplane from point A to point B using the ForeFlight product. So we're talking about, like I said, filing, flight planning, and getting the airplane and your ForeFlight set up as best as possible before you even get in the air. Now, like I said, we do want this to be an interactive session here, so we want you to ask questions. And you can do that by going to the GoToWebinar message panel and type in your question here, and we'll respond to them during this presentation. And assuming Tim and I don't talk too long, we will have a larger Q&A at the end.
We do tend to talk too long.
Yeah, sometimes we talk too long. If Tim sounds like he's in the background, because we only have one mic working in this room, so I'm just going to be swinging it back and forth between Tim and I here. So feel free to ask questions. Keep the questions relevant to what we're talking about here. If you have something that's very, very specific, like you're going to ask for ICAO codes for your specific type of GPS unit, for example, you can always send that to
team@ForeFlight.com.
That's right, team@ForeFlight.com, and we have a talented and dedicated team of flight ops people that are going to be able to answer that for you. So feel free to ask questions. Please don't spam us with 5 questions in a row. So that just makes our life more difficult. But we do want you to answer questions, and if we don't get to you right away, it may be because Tim or myself, we're going to hit on that topic sometime soon, but we do encourage that. Last thing, be sure if you haven't already gone there, go to ForeFlight.com support and do a keyword search under new user webinar links. And that is going to show you a screen where you're going to be able to get links to a lot of the resources that we're going to refer to in this presentation, specifically webinars and just articles that we've written. We spend a lot of time on customer education here at ForeFlight. So I would encourage you, if you haven't already done that, to go there as well. So, all right, enough of that. Let's get started. Yeah, that's what that slide says. There we go. And that's what that page will look like. So first thing I'm going to talk about is here are the things that I would recommend as far as what you should do prior to starting to fly with ForeFlight. Oh, you've got it up on your screen? Thank you.
But it's different. We'll go
Okay.
into that later.
All right. So before you get into flying with ForeFlight, there's a couple of things that I would do prior to trying to plan a flight or go flying with it. First off, is take some time and read the pilot's guide. It's a big document, I understand, but we're trying to jam a lot of information into a document here. And not every part of the pilot's guide is going to be relevant to your flying or even your subscription type.
Yeah, it's over 400 pages. So you might want to use the index and kind of go through it and find the parts that are relevant to what you need. And would strongly suggest taking out the ForeFlight mobile and playing with it on the ground prior to your flight. If you try doing it while you're in the air, it'll just give you a headache.
Right on. The other thing I would say is, get as much information as you can about the aircraft you're going to be flying. So if you own the airplane, you're obviously going to have the POH, you're going to have documentation about the avionics. Get all that information in front of you before you even try to start setting up the airplane. Tim's going to touch on that in just a minute or two. If you're flying out of a flight school or some other place where you rent the airplanes, a lot of times their websites will have a ton of information about the airplane. One place that I've flown out of recently, they actually had weight and balance information. If you knew where to look, you could dig around and find that. But they're going to list the type of equipment that is going to be in the airplane. It's part of a marketing tool. So, they're going to try to entice you to rent with them because they've got the latest whiz-bang GPS unit in that airplane. So you can get a lot of that information ahead of time. Next, I would say, practice using the app. Just get used to the interface. How are the buttons working? What's going to happen after you touch this part of the screen? Just make sure that you have familiarity with that. And if you're anything like me, when I downloaded ForeFlight the first time, I was just doing all kinds of stuff with it, tapping everywhere to see what would work. I'm just curious that way. Become an armchair pilot. And then finally, in the screen that I have showing up here, I apologize, it's a boring background, but this is the ForeFlight Support Center. Like I said, you've got links, we've got webinars, we've got tons of videos. If you're, for example, if you want to do cross-country flying, our friend Phil Inman did a fantastic webinar on cross-country flight plan filing and planning through ForeFlight that is available on our website. So that's just a plug for Phil, but you can find all kinds of great things in there about that. So that is it for me. I'm going to turn this over to Tim. Are you ready, Tim?
No, not really, but go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to turn this over to your side. So it's your airplane, and
Alrighty, my airplane. I might go a little slow. Whoa, I almost hit myself. Might go a little slow this morning or this afternoon. The coffee was switched out. We no longer have the dark roast here. So
I'm sorry, Tim.
I
didn't know it's a performance limiter.
It is a performance limiter. If management's listening, we'd like to have the dark roast back. All right, so here we go. We're going to try and move through this a little bit quickly. There's some sticky points for new users that we'd like to address. We could do a deep dive on this. In fact, we have. If you want more information, please take a look at the shameless plug ICAO filing made easy webinar. Let's move on to building an aircraft. So here we are, ForeFlight Mobile. We'll tap More. We will go over to Aircraft. A little plus sign, we'll add an aircraft. The first thing we need to do is put in an actual registry. When you put in your tail number, if you're in the United States, remember it needs to start with an alpha character. So November 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if that happens to be your aircraft, we really appreciate you letting us borrow it for this webinar. We'll go down to aircraft type. We'll type in the manufacturer. And we'll move through the Cessna stuff. And the reason why we do this, and you'll see a tremendous number of different aircraft here that are available. On the right-hand side, you will see the filing code. This is the ICAO filing code that tells the aircraft type. We'll just pick one. And we can add the color, the home airport, airspeed, units, etc. We're going to move on to performance profiles. It is important that you set up a performance profile for everything to work correctly. So we'll drop in there. It's pretty simple. You could add additional information, but for the required information, we need to have a true airspeed. Let's just say 110 knots. And let's say that we do 9 gallons an hour in cruise. And let's see, profile name. Why don't we just name this basic? You don't have to name it, but it makes it easier if you have a couple of different profiles. We'll make it the default profile, and we'll go back. There it is. Okay. Have the glide speed, glide ratio, default cruise altitude. This is important because when we get over to the flight plan editor, a lot of people ask why it defaults to a particular cruise altitude. And this is where you select that cruise altitude. So if you wanted something lower, you'd click in here and make it lower. If you wanted something higher, you'd click in there and make it higher. And of course, you can change it when you're actually doing the flight plan later. Move down a little bit further. That's interesting. It's pulling up Jet A for a Cessna 172. That's not quite right. Let's put it at 100 low lead. Move down a little more. And we're going to tap on ICAO equipment. The FAA equipment is no longer in use. So we'll go through here. Little trick, if you have VOR, ILS, VHF radio, you can just select S for standard equipment, which is right here. And let's say that we also have a GPS unit. And that GPS unit has to be installed in the aircraft. It can't be the one that's in your iPad. Doesn't work like that. On, let's see, the surveillance equipment. If you have ADS-B out or ADS-B in out, for 1090 it's B1, B2. If you're using UAT, it'll be down here, U1, U2. So let's say that we are ADS-B 1090 in and out. Let's select that. And you'll notice it automatically selects a transponder type. If you happen to be a different transponder type, like mode E, you'd select mode E. That's all there is to that. Moving down, ICAO PBN. This is performance-based navigation equipment. And this is telling ERAM, Air Traffic Control's computer system, additional capabilities of the aircraft, of the equipment on board the aircraft. So, for example, if you are capable of RNAV5 with GPS, you could select that. The important one here is the D2 or the D series codes. These are used for RNAV procedures, so RNAV SIDS and stars. If the aircraft is capable of RNAV1, you'd want to select that in order to be able to file RNAV SIDS and stars. If you're not capable of it, if you don't know it, you don't need this. You can just move on. It's okay. And you'll notice that when these are selected, it automatically selects Romeo under the ICAO equipment codes. And Romeo is the identifier in the equipment codes that tells ATC's computer system to go look at the PBN equipment. So we do that automatically now. If you have the dinghy count, other emergency equipment, that kind of thing, you should, if you're flying in the United States, have an ELT. So you'll select that. Move on. Undercarriage type and ELT type, that's a requirement for Canada. You don't need it if you're anywhere else in the world. And we're done. Now, let's move on to maps. At the top, and you notice I went from the bottom over to the Maps tab. Going across the top, we have this drop down. On the left-hand side are charts that are available. So if you wanted US IFR low, you'd select there, or VFR sectional, you'd select that one. We're going to stick with the aeronautical just for this demonstration. On the right-hand side are overlays. So if you wanted to look at thunderstorms in the area, you could select the radar composite. If you're looking at stuff down towards the ground, for example, if you're looking at an approach, you'd select lowest tilt, and that just takes the bottom slice. There's a number of other overlays that you can use. We're not going to use them for this demonstration. Going over to the right is FPL. This is the flight plan editor, and we'll come back to that in a minute. We'll just tap the button again and it disappears. Over one more, this is the settings button. If you want to make any changes inside of this map screen, the theme, the terrain, etc., you'd come in here and change the settings. Tap it one more and it goes away. This next button over is the artificial horizon. You need to have it tied to an AHARS type unit. For example, the Sentry Plus that has just come out. Sentry Plus is available in the United States exclusively at Sporties, or if you're in Europe, flywithsentry.com. And the features are pretty extensive.
Yeah, they added a lot of good stuff to this new version of the Sentry. So if you previously owned a Sentry device, this is going to be an upgrade for you. But if you enjoy having that those extra features like AHARS,
18-hour battery
an
life.
18-hour battery, it even gives you a G load, so we can see how hard we land again.
That's you.
Yeah. Carbon monoxide monitor.
That exists.
Of course, you get your ADS-B weather. That's probably one of the bigger things. If you're over in Europe, you got FLARM.
That FLARM is incredibly important.
Yeah.
Hopefully someday it comes over to the United States.
Right.
But yeah, ADS-B plus FLARM is going to be a huge deal.
Yeah, so check it out. Go to those two sites that Tim mentioned previously. You give it to us again.
So yeah, sure. In the United States, it's exclusively available over at Sporties. And if you're a friend over in Europe, it's flywithsentry.com.
Okay, so we've done our sponsorship for the show.
What do we get? Coffee?
Yeah, free coffee in the break room. So
that's not the dark roast. All right, here we go, guys. So get rid of that, go over one more, and you'll notice at the bottom our instruments pop up, and we have a number of instruments here. If you want to change out one of the instruments, you click on it, and for example, you can go through and select all sorts of things. Here's the G meter for when we go flying later and see how hard Rob lands the airplane. Next over is favorites, and you can tap on that and it gives you a list of saved favorite routes. So for example, if you're always flying from Sugar Land to Austin or vice versa, you could have a stack of routes here that you just pull up. Okay, let's go back over to flight plan. We're going to select aircraft. Here's the aircraft that we just built. The basic performance profile auto loads. And if you were watching last time, it should be auto loading. Here's the generic, the default altitude, 8,000 feet. We mentioned that once before. Over here is your procedure advisor, route advisor, and the estimated time of departure. We're going to go ahead and hop in here, and let's fly from Sugar Land over to Austin. Here we go. And I will tap on the route advisor, and it gives a number of different routes here. For example, this one, the Born 4 newer Wheelie 6, it's been cleared today 471 times total in the last 28 days. However, it is for turboprop and jet aircraft only. We're in a little piston, so we can't use that one. Let's go on to the next one. IDU 1, IDU better 9, so cleared over a month ago, 7 times total. Piston and jet, yeah, okay, so it's got a piston on it. We'll go ahead and take that.
You got that altitude there as well.
12,000 feet, fine. We'll keep moving on. Here's airways only if you want to do that, but look at that altitude. Something's going on with that. How about this one?
I like that one because I'm scared of heights.
Are you?
Yeah.
Well, this one's only 4,000 to 8,000 feet.
I'm cool with that.
Oh, okay. You're a pilot who's scared of heights.
Hey, I just don't look out the window. I fly instruments.
Okay, guys. So here we go. It's cleared over a month ago, 41 times total. Turboprop piston, that's the important part in jet. So we'll go ahead and select this one. Select route. You'll notice that it auto-populates here. If you want, you can go through and let's say that we want to get rid of this procedure, the IDU 1 IDU. We will tap on it with our finger and then push down and it explodes. That is Rob's favorite part. Don't tell the NTSB that he likes things that explode around aviation. Today's a nice day. Instead of flying via IFR, why don't we go VFR? We'll tap the altitude there. We'll select VFR. And if you notice in the center, it gives the current wind. So we have a little bit of a tailwind, the time en route, and the actual burn. You know what? If we go 6,500 feet, we get about the same time, but about half a gallon less burn. Why don't we do that one? Okay, there we go. We're now at 6,500 feet. Let's set the time for a little bit later today. Normally I'm in Zulu time, but there we go. Normally I'm in Zulu. This happened to revert over to Central, so we'll just roll with it. You know, yeah. So the distance is 121 nautical. Time en route is 1 hour and 8 minutes. ETA 8:30 p.m. Fuel's 13 gallons with a 6-knot tailwind. But you know what? I'm gonna want to miss some stuff right here. So I'm gonna tap on the route line, and I'm gonna pull it down to say this VOR right here. You'll notice on the right-hand side, an overlay comes over, it kind of pops over, and we can select the VOR, and it automatically populates.
Yeah, and one thing that little trick that Tim showed you is really handy for a couple of situations, and we hear about this a lot. So, you know, a lot of us, you know, sometimes we just need to go out to the airport and we just need to do a couple of turns around the pattern, get some landings in, but you still have to be legal. You still have to get your weather briefing. You have to make sure that you have the right information for the flight. Well, how do you plan for a flight if we're going to take off out of Sugar Land, but we're just going to fly the pattern, right? If you tried to go Sugar Land to Sugar Land, you're going to get an error in ForeFlight because ForeFlight sees it as distance 0. So it just goes, it's not going to happen. So what Tim is showing us here is what you do is you put in Sugar Land as your departure, and then you use this little trick like Tim showed you, and you just place a waypoint there on the downwind. So if you're going to
be a lat long,
and it absolutely can be a lat long. So if you're going to be flying a right-hand pattern at Sugar Land, which isn't unusual, you can just put that in there, and that will put in an intermediate point, which gives ForeFlight the ability to calculate something that's not a 0 distance, thus allowing you to get a full weather brief.
and it will allow you to successfully file if you happen to be trying to file.
So I just wanted to point that out because we do hear that a lot, especially, you know, not just student pilots, but, you know, you got to go out there and you know, practice your skills. So you want to get your weather briefing while you're in the pattern. That's how you do it. So thanks for letting me interrupt, Tim.
Interrupt all you want.
All right.
All right. And we're not going to use that lat long. So tap and make it go boom. I'll go ahead and pull this out a little bit. Now we can see the whole route here. Down at the bottom, we're going to look at the nav log. We were in the edit field, nav log. This gives you some basic time burns pretty quick with the waypoints.
Do you want to talk about the direct?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So on the screen that Tim has up here on the nav log, this is a feature I think you got to read the pilot guide real thoroughly to find this in here. But let's just say we were on an IFR flight plan and we've departed out of Sugar Land, and let's just say the controller is feeling generous that day. We're between Sugar Land and Eagle Lake, and he says, clear direct Charlie Whiskey Kilo. Well, all you have to do is click on that arrow button, and it's going to ask you to change the plan, and you would go, yes, direct CWK, bada bing, there you go. And now you got your direct to that waypoint, and it gives you your heading, and now your new updated burns, times, all that stuff. So that's just a neat little trick that you can literally, if you're flying, you know, with your iPad, you can do it with your thumb, and it just recalculates everything for you. It's very handy, especially in the IFR environment. So
there you go. All right. I think we're going to break this mic.
Probably.
Okay. So one more over is the profile. It's not available in the basic performance or the basic subscription level. Thank you. Like I said, didn't get that dark roast coffee. So it's not available in the basic subscription. It is for the more advanced subscriptions, available for an add-on. If you are over in the West Coast, Rocky Mountain area, if you are worried about thunderstorms, depending on the types of flying that you do, the profile view can be very helpful to make sure you do not you're not rooting into a mountain
Icing.
or icing
Yeah.
or those kind of things. It shows quite a bit of information. Maybe we should add that on here for another one. So back over to edit. Coming in from the left-hand side, you'll see this little suitcase with a number 1 on it. This is the pack feature, and you'll notice this is our route, and there's a ring that's about 25 nautical miles around the routing. And what this pack feature does, I'm not going to pack it here, but we'll talk about it, is it downloads all the information that you could possibly need for this route so that once you are away from Wi-Fi, your device has everything that it needs in here. If you need to root around a little something, you've got the information. My suggestion, because usually it's a big download, is that you do the download at home the night before. You plan your flight and you go ahead and do the pack, and it downloads the bulk of the information. That way, the next day when you're walking out to the airplane, you can pack again, and it's just going to pack the weather information, any kind of changes, TFRs, NOTAMs, that kind of stuff that's popped up between you doing the big download. It makes it a lot easier. So we're going to move along here. The star is for the favorite route. So if we really wanted to save this one, we'd type in our favorite route name here. And oh, this is interesting. Remember, I got rid of the lat long. The lat long is now where we are at as opposed to Sugarland.
Yes.
So I'll tell you what, we're going to type in Sugarland. We're going to tap on Sugarland, and we're going to move it over to the beginning of the route like that, and we're going to get rid of that. Oops. There we go. So now we have our old route back. Not sure how that happened.
So we got a question about what happens to all that packed data in your flight. Does it get cleared out? Yes, it gets cleared out when it expires.
Yeah, when it expires, it just kind of rolls out.
So it's not going to jam up your iPad with all this old weather data from 6 months ago.
Right, no, it falls out. All right. So we've done the favorites. Now we're going to send to. We're going to send this flight over to the flights tab. In order to do that, this little box with the arrow, that's called a send to button. We're going to tap that, and we're going to select flights to send it over. Your turn, Rob.
I'm going to go the other way. Yeah, I'm going to go that way. Thank you.
It's winding the cord here.
Yeah, it's fine. It'll keep it in place.
Okay.
We're good. All right, so this is the flight screen. So what Tim showed you is kind of the big overview, big picture of the flight. Here's where you kind of fill in the color of the flight and add things in. Across the top, and we're going to get to this at the end after we populated the screen a bit more, but you've got your nav log, your briefing, and then new messages. But we will talk about that in a little more detail when we get down to the end. Up here at the top, obviously, we've got our departure time, we've got our departure, we've got our destination. But let's just say, Tim, the weather, and maybe it starts getting a little iffy, and we want to have an alternate. Yeah. Let's just be safe and have ourselves a nice alternate here. So you can click on that, and ForeFlight will immediately start looking for alternates for you. So it's recommending Austin Executive, which would not be a bad choice. It's got a nice long runway. It's got an RNAV approach. It's only going to cost me a gallon of fuel and 8 additional minutes. So if I wanted to click that, I would select that, and then it would say add EDC as alternate. Why not? Now, what if I change my mind? I can select alternate again. And let's just say, okay, if we can't get into Austin, we're going to go back to Sugarland. Well, you can just type in whatever airport you want in there, and it will do the same thing. It will recalculate how much it's going to cost, how much time, and it's going to add it to your totals. So it's not rocket science. It's pretty easy there. I'm sorry, Tim, one more thing I want to talk about there. If you click on that again, the little green dot on the left, just color code for weather.
Green's good, yellow's not so good, red
right.
bad.
Yeah, anything other than green, avoid. Red, really bad. Stay away from
it
red.
Simple for pilots. Green good, yellow not so good, red bad.
Yeah, purple's bad, blue's bad, green. We want green. So anyways, that's enough on that. So we've got our alternate selected. We got the aircraft performance. We're going, let's change that over to, do we want to do a VFR or IFR filing on this one?
Well, we're going to do both, right?
Okay.
Let's do VFR first.
Okay.
Because that's the more complex one. So if we run out of time.
Right. So we've got we've got the flight rule set at VFR. We've got our route. Remember, we're going direct to CWK, which is fine. We've got our cruise altitude of 6,500. Again, a lot of the routes, a lot of the functionality that you had on the previous screen that Tim showed you is available here. So if you hit the routes, it would bring up the routes just like you had on the previous screen. If you click the altitude, same thing. It's just giving you another chance because things change as you go between these screens. Destination services, FBO, if you know which FBO you're going to go to, whether it's going to be Signature or Atlantic or whatever FBO happens to be at that airport, you can put that there. You could even click and send in a fuel order. You guys are smart enough to figure that part out. The flight log, I love this feature, and it's really simple, but it's just great because the flight log. So, okay, I understand you don't really know how much fuel you got in a tank on a Cessna because the only time it's accurate is when it's empty.
That's when mine's accurate.
But if you're in an airplane that has a digital readout that you trust, you can put in your start and ending fuel times, and it will do the calculation of your burns on there. That's great. So also the next field down, the times field, this is where you enter your starting and ending hops, and it will do the calculations for you.
You like math, don't you?
I'm terrible at math. That's why I went into this field. So, all right. So it's pretty simple, self-explanatory. If you've got more complicated stuff, like you have to have, out and off, on and in, you can do all that. But for, if we're just going to go out and have some fun in the airplane,
that's what I like.
This works. Again, the pack feature, like Tim said, especially if you're going into a region you have never flown in before and you've got to download, the sectional charts and all this stuff, please download it at home when you have good Wi-Fi, and then hit the button right before you go out to the airplane to get the latest NOTAMs, TFRs, weather, all that good stuff. So that's where pack is. And that's it. So this is kind of covered in our flight plan a little bit. Then we're going to hit proceed to file.
Did you want to talk about the briefing or navlog since we're here?
Sure, let's do that. Okay, so now that we have that in here, let's talk about the navlog first. So the navlog is just simply that. It's going to give you this format for your navlog. You do have the option to change the format, but this is your basic navlog. I like to, when I go on a flight, I like to print this out. Send it over, let the FBO pay for the printer and the paper and shoot it over there because now I have not only my flight data, but I also have a scratch pad, right? I can write down my ATIS, I can write down a clearance if I need it. It's just nice to have it. If you're a student pilot and you use this for your tests, you're cheating. You should have to do it the old way like I did, but.
You're going to make them pull out an E6B, aren't you?
Yeah,
absolutely. A whiz wheel,
yeah,
kind of spin around. All right.
Also, it gives you that nice map because I usually get lost on the ground and not in the air.
Progressive taxi.
Yeah, I could always ask for, I have too much pride to ask for progressive taxi. So anyways, it's going to show you where all your FBOs are and so on and so forth. So that's the navlog. Let's go over to the briefing real quick. And this is going to pull up a briefing. Hopefully it doesn't take
It's thinking.
Wow, that's taking way longer than I thought it was going to, Tim. Yeah. There we go. Thank you. Okay, so this is the briefing. This vertical cross-section chart, if you've never looked at it before, spend some time just kind of absorbing it. There's an article on the ForeFlight support webpage I wrote on this because it took me like 3 weeks to figure it out because I'm not very bright. So I figured I better write it all down.
You're a commercial pilot?
Yeah, well, you know what they say. But once you learn how to read it, it's an extremely helpful chart. It's a great chart. So you're looking at it from the side and think from left to right. Yep. And then you got your bird's eye view. It's going to, winds and temperature, and so on and so forth. You guys know how these charts work, but it's going to give you all the information that you need to fly legally and safe. So that is where your briefing is going to be. So that's enough of the briefing.
Sure.
Over on the right, and you don't have to click on it, Tim, but new messages. Once you file, depending on the airspace you're going through, you may get alerts about, if there's drone activity, if guys are out there flying pipeline drones, you may see messages in there. It's just going to be little notifications from the FAA about hazards or things to watch out for along your route of flight. Sometimes you get a ton of them, sometimes you don't. It just depends on what's going on that day. So that's what that little field is for. All right, moving over to proceed to file. So Tim's going to select this and a little box is going to pop up. And what this is this is a much more user-friendly version of the ICAO flight plan form. The form type is ICAO. As a civilian pilot, you're not going to be able to change that back to the old FAA form because as of August 2019, the FAA mandated you must use ICAO unless you're a military operator. So learn to love the ICAO. It's actually a lot more versatile. It really is a better form. It provides a lot more information. If ICAO is intimidating, we've got a couple of videos. ICAO filing made
easy.
Yep.
I'd
ICAO.
say drink, but I don't have
Yeah, we don't have your coffee, sorry. And I think Tim and I touch on it a little bit on a previous webinar we recorded called Filing IFR with ForeFlight. But one of the great things about ForeFlight is it's going to do a lot of the work for you if you just fill in the blanks. It will take care of the format for you, and look, we want to make it as easy as possible. So don't be intimidated by ICAO, it's okay. All right, so we've got our form type, our flight rules, and information about the airplane. We'll scroll down, we're departing from Sugar Land. Here's our route, we've got our altitude, we've got our time en route. Tim, we need to put some fuel on board this bird.
Why do we need fuel?
Well,
it's expensive.
It is expensive. It is expensive. So why don't you just give me 3 hours of fuel on that, because otherwise it's going to give us a hard time when we try to file it. The other information field in the STS special handling, unless you really know you have to fill in those fields, don't. We go over them again, those fields in detail on ICAO filing made easy and the filing IFR with ForeFlight webinar. The remarks section. Now, a lot of times people don't know what to put in the remarks section. Tim will put in things like test, especially if we have to do a test filing, but let's just say you're going out and you're doing IFR training. And so you've got your instructor there, he's operating as your safety pilot, and you're gonna go over to an airport that's not your home base. Like here at Sugar Land, you may go over to Wharton. You can put you can request the procedure you want to fly. So you want to fly the ILS, I don't know, runway 17 at Wharton. You can put that in the remarks field when you file, and ATC will have a little bit of a heads up of what you want. If you're flying from, say, Mexico or the Bahamas, and you're coming in and you want to make sure that customs is notified, you can put ADCUS in there. That's what it's for. The big thing to remember in the remarks section is it's alphanumeric. So don't put ampersands, question marks, commas. That will cause the flight plan to get rejected because the computer just doesn't recognize those characters in that field. So heads up on that. All right, destination. We've got all that. We're not going over water. We've got information about our emergency equipment, and now we're down to the pilot information. Yeah. All right. Now, here are the things we want to. Right. Let's talk about the phone number real quick. Obviously, your name is in there because we need to know who's filing the flight plan. The email address is important because that's the email address where we're going to send information about the flight plan. So if you're filing IFR, that's where you're going to get your acknowledgement. You're going to get an edict if you have if something has come up with your flight plan. Any information that ForeFlight feels like it needs to email you about a flight plan, that's the email that is going to be used. You got something? Okay.
I was going to hit on the phone number. But
yeah, I'm going on the phone number now. The address, don't worry about the address, okay? There are some places in the world they want you to have that, but look, the FAA knows where you live. Phone number, this is super important. Please be sure you use the phone number of the phone that you're going to have in your pocket when you go flying. Don't list your landline. Don't list your mom's phone number. Don't list
your secretary.
Not the office number, because this is the number that, first of all, the FAA is going to try to reach you on if they need to get a hold of you. Second, if we need to reach you. Now, Tim's team over in flight operations, they spend almost their entire day watching the filings. We're watching the filings to make sure that everybody can get filed. And if we see that somebody's struggling with a flight plan, we're going to look up what number did they put in the filing form so that we can contact them.
Yeah, that's right. And if you're having some trouble and you happen to see a call coming in from an 832 area code, a 713 area code, 281 area code, but primarily 713-832. If you happen to see that and you're having trouble, please answer the phone. We're trying to get a hold of you to help you out.
And we make those phone calls, almost daily, almost daily. So please be sure it's a phone number that you have on you. All right. Great. License number, you don't have to put that in there. All right. So if we're happy with this, we can go ahead and hit file. Now, remember, this is a VFR flight plan. Tim, you didn't put in the right phone number, Tim. We just talked about this. All right, so now he's going to hit file. Now, this pop-up box is going to show up. check that. Make sure it really jives with when you plan to be leaving. Because if it says, are you ready to file this plan departing in 5 minutes and you're still at home, there's something wrong. All right. So make sure it works out. We get that a lot where, you know, people make mistakes and you put the wrong time in. Just make sure that works out for you. Go ahead and hit, you got something else?
Well, yeah, you were mentioning the time. If you just need to change it by an hour or 2 hours, up to 2 hours, the flight plan will still be in the system, and so you don't actually need to file a new flight plan. So if you happen to be in the FBO and you file it as departing in 15 minutes, and you really are departing in 30 minutes, you don't need to file a new flight plan. You're good to go. They'll have it once you call clearance.
Right, and like Tim said, most flight plans, especially here in the U.S., most ATC centers will hold on to your flight plan for up to 120 minutes. And you can go early too in the U.S. They don't care about going early.
And if you happen to be going, significantly earlier, but you've already filed the flight plan, the strip hasn't been printed yet. So when you call clearance delivery, let them know that you're calling early so that they can go dig for the flight plan, because if they don't have the strip, they might not see the flight plan yet.
Yeah, it's a good point, Tim. Thanks. All right, so we've got that covered. Go ahead and hit the file button, and hopefully we'll get the big green happy check mark. And boom, there we go. Okay, now we filed a VFR flight plan. What happened? Well, I'll tell you what happened. That flight plan just went into a quote unquote electronic bucket at the local flight service. Nothing's really happened. VFR flight plan is primarily a search and rescue function. So what you need to do next is activate the flight plan. Now, what I do, and this is what I do, I'll file the VFR flight plan, and then I will have my ForeFlight on my cell phone in my pocket, because my cell phone has cellular where my iPad doesn't. After I've completed the run up and I'm confident that I'm going to go, I will pull out my ForeFlight and I will hit the green activate button. And what that does is it starts a timer. And if you don't arrive at your destination and close out your flight plan at that time, or within a certain amount of time afterwards, generally about 30 minutes, the FAA is going to start getting a little anxious and start looking for you. Start making phone calls, waking Tim up in the middle of the night going, where's this airplane?
Been there, done that.
Yeah, it happens a lot. So don't hit that activate button until you know you're ready to get rolling on that. Aside from that, that's what a VFR flight plan does. So Tim, let's just say we don't want to go VFR. Let's just say we want to go IFR. So we're going to have to cancel this flight plan. So how would we cancel?
Well, we push the red button.
Yeah, just hit the red button. It's as easy as that. So we're going to cancel our flight plan. Yay. And now you'll notice, and I should have pointed this out before, but I'll point it back out again. Down here is where it says, put your cursor over the not filed. Right there, that's where the flight plan is filed. So let's go ahead and turn this into an IFR flight plan real quick.
Okay. So IFR.
All right. And we're gonna have to change our altitude. So let's,
Sure.
So I think 6,000 feet is probably gonna be just fine, but let's compare the numbers.
Okay.
Yeah, between 6 and 8, I actually like 6 better. So let's go with 6, and it does all the updates for you. And then pretty much it's gonna be the same type of thing. So we're gonna go proceed to file, and now it's gonna look slightly different.
You need to copy.
Right, this flight plan has changed, and you want to be sure that you hit copy, because what you're doing is you're changing this particular instance of the flight in ForeFlight. So go ahead and hit copy. And you'll notice all of our changes have come in. It's IFR, and the 6,000 is now stuck in there. So we can go ahead and hit file. And
green check mark.
We got a green check mark. Okay, so now we're on file. What if we want to change the flight plan, Tim? What if we decide we want to go from 6,000, and let's just say we want to go to 4,000? Let's show them how to do that. So to amend a flight plan,
Oops. That's weird.
there you go.
Okay.
So if we want to amend a flight plan, what we're going to do is we're going to go and we're going to change the altitude.
Where'd the altitude go? I miss it. Here.
Change it to 4,000, or what'd you put it at?
Yeah, I put it at 8.
Okay, fine.
You wanted 4. 4,000.
4,000. So hit that, go ahead and hit amend. It's going to ask you to copy it. And now you'll notice the blue button is said file changes. So what we're going to do is we're going to file the change, and it's going to send a change message over to ATC. Go ahead and select amend. It will amend. And now the flight plan is on file. Everything is the same except the altitude is now at 4,000
And
feet.
it shows file.
And you'll notice it says filed down here in the lower left, and it should be little green filed. That's it. Again, to cancel, let's get this thing out of the system. And we're going to cancel our flight plan.
That's it.
Yep.
Time for questions.
All right, so I think we hit on the first question where they were asking about the packed data. I'd have to look and see. I don't know if it's in the pilot's guide of when exactly it comes out, but trust me, we do not just load up your iPad every available byte of space with old weather data. It falls out of the system. It deletes out. What happens if you accidentally hit activate after file? Is there a cancel are you sure button? Okay, look, if you accidentally hit activate after you file,
You can close. There's a close
yeah, you
button.
could just close the flight plan right there. Yeah, you should have a button that says close flight plan. Just close that flight plan and do it again. Worst case scenario is you call
flight service.
Call flight service and say, hey,
I'm
yeah.
still on the ground.
right, and they'll work with you on that. It's not a cardinal offense for sure. So don't worry about that. Look, we've all stumbled our way through this kind of stuff as well. So it's not that big a deal. Tim, you did a bang up job because we got like no questions here. You're really good at this. I think you should do this by yourself next time. No?
Only if they get the dark roast coffee.
Okay, well, all right. Couple of key things, key recommendations I'm gonna hit on.
There you go. You want to switch over to that?
Oh yeah, thank you, Tim. This is why they have two people in this place. Couple of things just to ask. These are kind of best practices things before you go flying. Look, is your iPad, is it powered up? You know, is it plugged in? Do you have enough power for your flight? Plus a 45-minute reserve. You know, if things get held up, you don't get off the ground in time, winds are worse, so on and so forth. Do you have the most up-to-date version of the software? Man, we run into so many problems where we look and go, that version was like 6 years ago.
And not just the software version, but also the charts. You can tap more and then download. And if any of your
Do you
charts,
want me to switch to that screen?
yeah, sure. Why don't we go ahead and do that?
Okay.
If any of your charts need to be updated, so we'll tap more, download, and if any of your charts need to be updated, the download button right here would highlight in blue, and you just tap download and it would download the latest and greatest charts.
Right, and if you do have a lot of downloads, I would certainly recommend doing that the night before.
Yeah.
Because they can be rather significant. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Yes,
Do you have all the available information for your flight? Is your iPad and your ForeFlight, is that part of your mental pre-flight checklist? And look, don't take ForeFlight into the cockpit if you're not comfortable with it. Don't let it be a distraction. Make sure you are comfortable with this tool because, you know, it's always aviate first, right?
Right. Yeah. Fly the airplane first. And that's why I said at the beginning of this, don't try to learn ForeFlight while you're in the cockpit. Do it on the ground. Do it when you're in a comfortable place. Do it when you got a dark roast coffee in front of you.
Absolutely. So, and then do you have a backup plan? If ForeFlight, if ForeFlight stops working for you, I don't know, your iPad has a catastrophic failure or something, what's your backup plan? Right, do you have the paper charts? You know, can you stop going IFR and bail out and go VFR and just navigate the old-fashioned way? Pilotage and dead record.
ILS, make it work.
Yeah, ILS or go IFR where I follow roads.
Or if you're in Alaska, I follow rivers.
Yeah, I follow rivers. So be sure you don't get yourself into a corner. So I wanted to talk on that. Interesting question. Hey, yeah, this is near and dear to our hearts. Got somebody asking, is it possible to practice filing flight plans on a Redbird simulator? Now, Tim, deep breath, Tim. Look, do everything you can in the Redbird. Don't hit the file button. Don't hit the file button. You can practice to everything but hit the file button. We run into this a lot where people on flight simulators or Redbird simulators are filing, 747s between Cleveland and JFK at 4,000 feet with one pilot. And we look at it and go, yeah, because they're actually transmitted and they hit the ATC system and ATC is not happy when that happens. So do everything you can up to, but stopping short. The file button is your hold short line. It is the double lines on the right.
And I mean, if you feel like you absolutely have to push that button for whatever reason, give us an email ahead of time at team@ForeFlight.com, and we will be happy to lock your account from any kind of filing.
What are you telling me?
Yes,
No,
I will lock the account.
Yeah, don't hit the file button unless you actually are actively are going to be filing it. But no, I mean, we have look right on the other side of this wall, we have our Redbird simulator here at ForeFlight. Yeah. So we use ForeFlight connected and we get the weather and all that stuff. Just don't hit the file button. More than happy. We had somebody else in here. I think one of the guys in the back answered that question. Look, Tim's team and my success team, we are more than happy to answer any questions you guys have. Team@ForeFlight.com. Use this as a resource. We're your partners in this. Look, we're up in the air with you guys. We want you guys to be as well informed as everybody else. So if you have a question, don't hesitate. Please don't hesitate to reach out to team@ForeFlight.com. Look, we've all been there. Don't be afraid if you're a new pilot and you're trying to figure stuff out. We want to help. We really do. Question, is file different than proceed to file? Yes. So Tim, let's go back to the screen and just show that again.
So this is the proceed to file.
And that is off of the files, the flights page. Right. Yeah. If you go to the flights page, and
you'd have a drop down of different flights that are available to you on the left-hand side.
Correct. Right. And then after you hit proceed to file, and all you're doing is you're opening up the window that allows you to file.
Yeah, and
to use the
really
filing
just a filing form.
It's a filing form. So that's the difference. And hopefully that's enough of an answer for you. Yeah. Okay.
So I see there's one here about call signs. What happens if we're using a call sign? How do we put that in? You'd go up here to call sign optional, and you tap call sign, and then if you happen to be if you happen to have a ForeFlight call sign, you'd put in whatever you happen to be using, and there it is. Don't put in something that you are not authorized to use.
Right. You only have a call sign if you have a call sign.
Yeah, you only have a call sign if you have a call sign. If you're just making something up, AATC is going to want to have a chat with you, and you are nice enough to put in your actual number at the bottom, so they will call you at the end of your flight.
Right. I think we got time for one more. So this one person is asking, how do you close down a flight plan after flying? Tim, let's show them that. So let's take it back, turn it into a VFR flight plan again. And we'll just show it to you. And we might have gone a little fast on that. Go ahead and hit file. It's still 4 hours plus, so we're good. So it's not gonna matter. All right, flight plan is filed, and then you hit activate. And after you hit activate, a button will show up.
You want me to go ahead and activate it?
We'll close it.
All right.
And notice it's going to give you this, and this is right. It's going to give you this your last chance to be sure that your en route time is still good. Because if you calculated your route time 2 days ago and the winds are significantly different, you may be showing up. Yeah, things have certainly changed. So you want to make sure of that. And once you hit yes, it's going to activate the flight plan, and then you've got to go ahead and now you'll notice next to the amend button is close button. That's all you have to do, close your flight plan. Now, one thing, and we should have mentioned this earlier, if you have any doubt whether your internet connection was strong enough to send that close,
call flight service.
Yeah, call flight service, double check. I mean, if you're at a modern FBO and you got good Wi-Fi and you walk in, hit close, it's going to close. But I mean, if it's spotty and you're the only one on the ramp in the middle of the night,
and it should say closed on the bottom left.
And it should say closed. So just be doubly sure to make sure that your flight plan is actually closed. So. We got, how can I use ForeFlight to track a flight without filing a flight plan? Well, you can just turn on your breadcrumbs. You've got your track log. I'd have to pull up,
you'd have to pull
but look in the pilot's guide for the track log, and it will show you. I wish I had some flights. I'm not
Yeah,
going to pull it. I had some of my old flights on my iPad
Yeah,
here,
I was
but
gonna say in the other account.
yeah, in the other
use
account
that
we had a
button
bunch from there.
basically.
But it is great because then you can see how bad you are at your holding patterns. And what
My
do you,
holding patterns are perfect.
are yours perfect?
No.
Okay, I was going to say. Why do you must do a lot of holding patterns.
Well,
So yeah, so look up track log in the pilot's guide, or hopefully maybe one of the folks in the back will send you over what page to look on that. But you can turn on track logs and it will show your entire flight. And it's got a ton of great information. It shows your altitude, shows your speed, all that stuff. So you don't have to file. You can use ForeFlight without ever filing a flight plan. Just use it as a reference tool and use it as a navigation tool.
Yep.
Because Tim and I are, IFR pilots, and we both started in the filing group in flight operations, so we mostly focus on filing flight plans.
Well, that's what this is really focusing
Yeah,
on.
right. So, all right. Yeah, I think that's what we wanted to hit on today. I want to put out a big thank you to the always patient, always
You have
patient
to be patient with us.
Jay and Sam for getting the computers and the iPads and the microphones set up for us, because we can never seem to remember how to do it, even though we've been doing this for 2 years. We want to thank Alex, Derek, and Pete for helping with the Q&A in the background. And we most of all want to thank all of you for taking time out this afternoon to listen to the two of us ramble on about ForeFlight. We hope you found it informative. We hope that you felt that it was a good use of your time. And you got anything else you want to add there, Tim?
No.
All right.
Dark roast coffee.
Tim wants his dark roast coffee. Be careful out there. Thank you for using ForeFlight.
Fly safe.
And yeah, fly safe.